Hi, I'm Matthew Herzberg, and this is the Myopia Mindset. This is the podcast full of motivation, inspiration, and education on your path towards success with myopia management. And I have got an episode that I've been wanting to do for a while now. It was requested by the audience. It's a topic that we definitely need to cover now that things are just changing very rapidly in our industry. And I wanted to call this episode, inside the Myopia Toolbox, what works and when, because we have so many new features to the Myopia Toolbox. I come from the back in the day when it was just ortho-keratology, working in my dad's practice, in the pioneer days of myopia management. But now we have so many more options available, and I feel like we just need to cover all of them, what the modern practice looks like and what the future has in store for us. So I've collected a panel of myopia management experts to help us navigate this conversation. And first, I want to introduce Dr. Jennifer Lyerly. She's an optometrist at True Vision Eye Care in Morrisville, North Carolina, where she specializes in scleral contact lenses and myopia management. She's become one of the most recognized voices in the profession. You know her as one of the co-founders of Defocus Media. She's also the founder of Idolatry, a patient education platform. She was named 2022 Visionary by the Contact Lens Institute and one of Vision Monday's most influential women that same year. Jennifer, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here, and obviously one of my favorite topics. I can't wait to learn from you guys today too.
Awesome. And you'll also recognize we have Dr. David Ng back. He's the owner of Bayview Vision Care and the Myopia Clinic. He has one of the largest dedicated myopia management practices in Canada. He's a graduate of the University of Waterloo School of Optometry. Dr. Ng has been building his myopia specialty for over 25 years now, with a particular focus in ortho-keratology, and he is a brand new board member of the American Academy of Ortho-Keratology and Myopia Control. Dave, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks, Matt. Glad to be on. I'm a big fan of you and Cary.
And we are excited to have our returning champion back as Cary Herzberg on the podcast. He's one of the pioneers of our industry, practicing myopia management for 40 plus years, primarily through ortho-keratology. I grew up in his practice. He is the co-founder of the American Academy of Ortho-Keratology and Myopia Control, and helped develop the International Academy of Ortho-Keratology and Myopia Control. Cary, welcome back to the podcast.
Well, thanks, Matt. It's good to be here, and I'm looking forward to our discussion tonight. This is exciting.
Yeah. All right. So before we get started, let's do a little bit of house cleaning. Jennifer, we'll start with you. If anybody wants to get in touch with you about anything we talk about in this episode, how can they do so?
Yeah. On Instagram, I'm at idolatry, UIE.DOLATRY, or you can always email me. It's jelyerly@gmail.com.
All right. And David?
DNG@themyopiaclinic.ca, or you can find me on LinkedIn.
All right. And Cary?
OAADOC@gmail.com.
All right. And if you want to get in touch with the podcast, myopiamindset@gmail.com. If you want to support the podcast, myopiamindset.substack.com is how you do so. And if you have any questions about this topic or anything you want us to talk about in the future, myopiamindset@gmail.com. Okay. Let's start with like an overview of each of your practices. Jennifer, we're going to start with you. Give us a snapshot of what your myopia practice looks like. How did you get into myopia management? What kind of modalities are you using? Give us just a real quick overview.
So I am an associate doctor working for a doctor named Alicia Barnes. She cold started this practice, True Vision Eye Care, about 10 years ago. At this point, I joined her 6 years ago. And weirdly enough, when I first came out of school, my first job was at this large group practice in North Carolina. And Alicia Barnes had put in her notice. She was leaving to start her own practice. And so they hired me and were kind of trying me out to see if I could be the fit to go into the office that she was at. So we overlapped by about 3 months. And in that time frame, kind of became really close, almost like a sister relationship. She really mentored me as I started my career. I can remember going in with a patient and coming out, and she was like, "Did you talk to them about myopia management?" It wasn't a big part of my education at Southern College of Optometry at the time. I graduated in 2011. So all this was kind of experimental, off-label. And I said no. And she said, well, why wouldn't we at least offer a way to slow things down? Like, why would we just let them get worse? And I can remember being blown away by her comment. I had never thought of it that way or framed it that way. And from that moment onward, that was my mission with every single child that was a myope in front of my chair. And I'm so lucky to be back with her again so many years later with this a core focus of our practice.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I love those origin stories for myopia management practices. What are you primarily using in your myopia management practice? MiSight, ortho-K, atropine?
All of it. MiSight, ortho-K, atropine, and now Essilor Stellest. We offer all of these options to our patients and try to have just a good discussion with what's going to work best for their lifestyle, because we have so many amazing approved things that we can do now, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like we have so many options available. What are we actually going to focus on using, depending on, what your interest or skill level or familiarity is with myopia management? David, I'm going to kick it over to you because you're developing a myopia management only clinic. Can you tell us more about that?
So I think about 2-3 years ago, we're looking at my patient demographics, and one of my managers said to me, "You know what? You should just be doing myopia. Like, you have so many patients to take care of." And as we decided to make that leap, and as of right now, I do myopia 4 days a week, and I only do general practice 1 day a week. And I'll be honest with you, I think I can be honest in this group here. My general practice day is my most miserable day, and my staff know that, right? I'm going to be a little edgy that day, but all the other days, I just love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what are you fitting in everything in the myopia clinic?
So we do everything in the myopia clinic. We're a little bit spoiled being in Canada. We just this month, we got launched 3 products. And just in terms of spectacles, I think right now in Canada, we have about 13 different lenses to pick from, of which only 4 we really use because they're Health Canada approved. And out of those lenses, we got the 2nd-generation lenses. So I kind of feel for my US colleagues, because when you guys say you have a lot of selection, I'm thinking, no, you guys don't have a lot of selection. I don't know how you're doing it, but we're spoiled up here in Canada.
Yeah, we're like looking into the future, at your practice, being like, what's in store for us? Definitely, when it's such a great comment that you pointed out, like, because we've only had certain options for so long, especially in the States, it feels like so much, but then compared to what what our Canadian colleagues have, it's really not that much. That's such a great point. That's such a great point to make. Cary, I grew up in your practice. I know all about it, but bring us back to the days of like how you developed your ortho-K practice. Were you using atropine back then? Were there any other considerations? You've had this vantage of being able to see how things have developed over the years.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, the atropine that was available back in the day was 1%. And that was very debilitating to vision in kids, and we had to prescribe bifocals and sunglasses and everything else. It was a mess. And then he had rebound to deal with. And that wasn't nice. That wasn't a nice thing to face either. So we didn't use atropine that much back in the day. We did ortho-K very effectively, by the way, and fit many thousands and thousands of patients. But I am enjoying today because I'm starting to make use of the new products that have come out, and that's so you can, an old dog can learn new tricks. So we're going to talk about that tonight.
Yeah,
some things that we're doing. So, but I would like to throw the gauntlet down out here on everybody. We're making a push now for SID 101. We want to get this approved by our FDA, and I think after we get that done, the gauntlet should be laid down by all of us to, basically eliminate myopia. Treat kids early enough, and then reduce or eliminate the prescription entirely. We're actively working with that with our own patients now in our practice. Are bringing their kids in. So if we have a chance, I'd like to talk a little bit about that because that's a brand new thing.
Yeah, let's start with it. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I have many generations of my own patients, and God bless you all. I hope you have that. The life is as generative as it's been for me, myself and Matt along the way here. And so we have, young patients started with 7 years of age, now have babies of their own. And incidentally, another thing just off the cuff here, I have 4 ophthalmologists that are still doing ortho-K, and they're surgeons, and they still come back every yearly for their checkups. This makes, to replace their lenses. But, it's a profound thing. But at this point now, with the kids coming back, obviously this isn't an ortho-K first application with a youngster like that. And what do you do? So with the parents that are agreeable to this, we start, doing preventive techniques, where the behavioral thing starts right off the bat. I mean, we're talking about, no cell phones, flip phone later on. I mean, I'm a convert with Brianna Rua, on this whole thing. She's taken that, and I applaud her for that. And so, we're starting with the behavioral stuff first, obviously, and outdoor activity and these other things that we're doing, axial length measurements when possible. And then we're actively using, atropine and Stellest as preventive measures. So, we'll stay tuned, but we're, very actively doing this. And, the amazing thing for our colleagues to talk about is, we're all kind of hamstrung with VCPs here and low reimbursements. I mean, this is a huge way to stimulate your practice. I mean, in non-VCP patients, basically medical type approaches towards, myopia. So I think once we get SID 101 approved by our FDA, we need to throw the gauntlet down and actually do this thing. I'd love to see this in my lifetime. So
yeah, I mean, what does that look like, throwing the gauntlet down? I mean, I remember the AAOMC. I mean, David, maybe you can speak to this as a board member of the AAOMC, but I remember the earlier days where it was like it's almost malpractice if you're not doing myopia management. A lot of myopia management docs came out guns blazing and were like, if you don't do this, you're doing it's unethical. And I feel like that was too much. We scared a lot of docs away from doing myopia management. And we put a lot of docs in a position where they're like, well, what if I'm not interested in this? Why can't I do a different specialty? So let's speak to that. Jennifer, feel free to jump in as well. So David, what do you think?
So I think the narrative has probably changed a little bit. Every time I talk to docs, I always say, how's your myopia journey? And, if I get a doc that doesn't do it, they say, you know what, I don't do myopia management, but I know I should be doing it, as opposed to I'm not interested in it. So, maybe it's the docs I hang out with, but they know they should be doing it. For whatever reason, they don't. And, that's another conversation in itself. And those that do, do they dabble or they seriously do it? So I think you see the whole spectrum of doctor kind of practice out there. In terms of what Cary said, he'd love to see a day where we just put the gauntlet down. We know some of the new stuff coming down the pipeline. Like we just got the MyoSmart IQ lens, right, which is the second generation MyoSmart. And they're claiming their data right now, the first 6 months, there's no change in axial length or prescription. They're going to release that 12-month data probably in a month or 2 months. And they said, you know what, it's going to be pretty close to that. So I've never heard a company say to me, we are going to control myopia. They're going to, it's usually management, but they're really confident. And I was at another meeting. There's a doc in Malaysia who said ortho-K and red light therapy is 100% effective. Like, these numbers are blowing me away because these docs have the confidence to say that. They have the data to back it up. So when I hear these statements, I'm going, oh, wow, like this is really changing, right? Like, myopia management, is it now that we change the terminology back to myopia control? I mean, with these methods that are claiming 100%, I mean, the data is early, but these are pretty smart docs with pretty solid research. So I'm looking forward to seeing that come to Canada and see how it works and how I can implement it in my practice.
Yeah, Jennifer.
I do want to share a cautionary tale to anyone who's not committed to making this a part of their practice yet. About, 8 months ago, maybe even a year ago at this point, I got a call from the president of our board here in the state of North Carolina. He was asking for me to consult on opinion on a recent patient complaint that they had received to the board. It was a mom that had filed a complaint against their doctor. Her son was now 17, 18 years old, something like that, and had a really high prescription. And they had moved to a different area. We're now seeing another doctor, and that doctor was talking to them about some myopia management options. And she was upset because their family doctor for the preceding decade had never mentioned this as an option. And kid went from like 4 to 6 to 9 to 11, and now it's like a 13 or 14. And so she filed a complaint against that doctor for not providing myopia management care. And I think, it is something we have to be aware of, whether you personally choose to add this to your practice right now or not, or you're waiting for something. I mean, I say go ahead and do it. But of course, I understand my colleagues feeling like, well, I need to educate myself or something like that. You've at least got to be talking about it. And I think that you do put yourself in a position where patients may file a complaint against you if you're not making sure that you're educating patients that it's out there.
Right. Yeah. And what are ECPs really waiting for at this point? Right. I mean, from the early days of the AAOMC, it's like, I understand orthokeratology has a learning curve to it, and whatnot. But with my sight, with atropine, with spectacles now, when Tony Sommer was on this podcast, he said, spectacles open up this level of accessibility because parents already expect the concept of glasses to be involved in the equation. So, I mean, I guess I'm asking, what are ECPs waiting for at this point, and what else needs to happen?
This is a question. What you hear in your office all the time, right? Is why haven't I heard of this before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody hears this all too often, and of course, one of the reasons why we founded the Academy and grew this thing in the first place was to eliminate, this question, which is still with us today. So I'd love the opinion of our two younger colleagues here to, see what their inputs are into this. I've been battling this thing for forever,
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to the modality specifically of atropine MySight spectacles, I mean, how do we get docs to start picking up myopia management? I mean, David, in Canada, you've had spectacles for way longer than we have. We just got them, and way more options. Is there a more of an adoption rate of myopia management included in Canadian practices now with the addition of spectacles?
I think there is. I think there's a large uptick of docs doing myopia management. I don't have specific numbers, but in all the urban centers in Canada, it's not as much as a foreign concept. In fact, I think if you talk to the doctors, they're always looking for what's next, what's coming down the pipeline, how can I improve patient care? Even in our practice, and I'm probably not the only practice that does this, but my opticians aren't allowed to dispense single vision lenses to children. So if a prescription comes in from outside and the parent wants to fill it, it's a minus 150, and they see the child is 7 years old, they say, oh, we don't sell that type of product. We only sell myopia lenses for children. And that kind of opens our conversation, or that opens the conversation with the mom and dad. So I would like to believe a lot more of my colleagues are doing stuff like that. And so our mode of practice has changed. Like I said, we have so much up here, that we can even talk, we can have a conversation with that. There's just so much going on in Canada. Mm-hmm. It's even hard for the average doc to keep up, I would say, right? Because it sounds like almost every 1 or 2 months there's some new product or new device that's being launched in Canada. But yeah, the number one sort of hesitation, I think, for docs is they feel like they don't know enough. They feel like they have to master myopia before they start. And, nothing could be farther, right? I mean, you just got to get started, right? Everyone knows how to do glasses. Do glasses first, figure out what your comfort zone is and to just grow from there. And, in the AAOMC, this year at VBD, we're going to have a section of how to launch your myopia management practice. That's going to be part of boot camp. So I'm really excited about that session coming up. So we're going to help the doc that's learning about myopia management to take it back to their office and start that day, not hesitate. Mm-hmm. And, we're going to have a step or sort of a formula or a schedule for them to follow just to make it a little bit easier for them.
Mm-hmm. Jennifer, what do you think?
No, I totally agree. I understand right now atropine, not FDA approved, and that does matter to some of our colleagues. I've been prescribing it off-label for some time, just looking at the data and the research, but I think that is a big hurdle for atropine being adopted amongst everyone, amongst optometrists. Some of my colleagues feel very confidently they will not put a child in contact lens. Obviously, I disagree, and I fit children in contact lenses all the time, but I can understand if that's a hill that you feel strongly about. The glasses thing, right? Like now that we have approved glasses available in the United States, I feel like that all arguments have to go out the table on that one. We prescribe glasses for kids all the time, and there's really no argument against that. So we'll have to see what the adoption rates are as we look a year out from the availability of Stellus to see if it has made a big movement. And I'm hoping that that final straw that was preventing it from becoming mainstream optometry, that should be broken now, in theory.
Yeah. It should be. Go ahead, Cary.
Can we address a couple things here? Because you guys have brought up some excellent issues here that I've been dealing with forever. One is that not fitting kids in contact lenses. I mean, come on, seriously? I mean, we were looking at this back in the 80s. With the doctors reluctant to fit kids with contact lenses. And we have our FDA that stepped out and approved the MiSight lens as a myopia control device. I mean, seriously? I think that's a handicap, in my opinion, for a doctor. That's a real big handicap. And they need to get over it, because there is nothing better for a child than to have to wear contact lenses as far as visual freedom. I mean, these different devices. So I think that's one thing we need to, I think we've been too soft on people. I think we need to be harder. I don't want to go where Jennifer went, with the, she just illustrated a point, but I don't think we need to do that. I have countless discussions with patients that ask me, well, why didn't someone do something about this early on, So I don't think we need to go there. We really don't want to go. I would rather be positive rather than negative. So I think we need to address that. But there's no excuse here today. I don't know how my colleagues feel about this. Just no excuse not to correct this myopia. Ophthalmology agrees. Let's get started with our own. I never thought there'd be laggards in this thing, because we deal with vision issues all the time. We're vision specialists. How could we miss this? I mean, this is so huge. So.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I've seen, I've mentioned this before, but I've seen it before. I saw it online specifically. I think it might have been like in a Facebook group or something, where you have one of these myopia groups online in social media, and you've got this new doc, and they're saying, "I've got a patient. This is their prescription. I know I need to do something. I think MiSight's the answer here, because I don't know how to do orthokeratology." And what does the group recommend? And you see this litany of posts come through of docs who are like, it has to be ortho-K, put that patient in ortho-K. But if you look at the details of the patient, like MiSight would do the trick. So I guess, like, how do we, Jennifer, in your practice, how do you decide which patients you would want to put into any particular modality? Is there a modality that you favor? Is there one that you would recommend to a new doc? Like, obviously glasses is the easy answer of being like, now this is available, so try it. But I feel like you have to go beyond glasses if you want to actually make myopia management successful in your practice. What do you think?
So the way I present this to my, let's say this is a parent conversation, right? Ortho-K, MiSight, and Essilor Stellus, they all work on the exact same principle of peripheral myopic defocus, right? So in theory, and I know different studies are going to show different numbers, I expect them to be equally effective. So what really matters is what best fits the patient's lifestyle and needs, in my personal opinion. And so for some people, wearing a contact lens during the day is going to be a difficult treatment. They're like avid swimmers or something. Okay, ortho-K, that makes more sense. Some kids are absolutely opposed. They do not want to participate in a contact lens conversation at this point in their life. Let's start with glasses. The only one that works on a different and unknown principle for how it controls myopia is atropine. And now that Essilor Stellus is available, I have found that we're doing a lot less atropine in our practice because we're often going into spectacles instead, unless I'm doing it for that early pseudomyopia or I'm adding it as an adjunctive. And so that's kind of a differentiator on where atropine is an and situation. And so for my colleagues that are like, what do I get started with? I mean, the two things that I always hear at conferences that are holding people back, people think they have to have axial length before they can get started. I highly disagree. I think axial length is fantastic, and it's a great way to tell if your treatment is effective. It's wonderful for building your myopia management program to show parents what you're really measuring and monitoring. But I would not, if you're saving up for a $40,000 axial length piece of equipment, don't wait. Just go ahead and start offering these tools. You don't have to have it to do myopia management. You don't have to have it to help your patients right now. The other thing, though, if you want to do ortho-K, you do have to have corneal topography. So, wait till you have that before you get started there. But other than that, there's no reason to start prescribing right away. And so maybe ortho-K has the most rate limiting steps because you do need that one piece of equipment to really do it successfully. But everything else you can do without any extra equipment.
Yeah. Yeah. And you bring up a number of great points. One of the ones I want to focus on is axial length specifically, because there has been such a push for axial length to become the standard of care. And it's interesting to hear you say that like so many docs have cited axial length as the barrier to entry. David, with all of these modalities at your disposal, is axial length, obviously it's very important. Obviously it's a potential portion of standard of care, but are we creating a problem that, to kind of Jennifer's point, like, isn't it more important to get ECPs started in myopia management with these entry-level modalities, essentially? Or should we be beating that drum? Is that part of throwing the gauntlet down that Cary described earlier?
Yeah, no, I don't think you need a biometer to start myopia management. Not at all. I mean, there's a lot you can do without a biometer. Obviously, if you're going to get serious into myopia management, sure, that's, a device that you should acquire. Topography, again, you don't need to have a topographer to get started with myopia management. I mean, what the definition of myopia management is it could be just lifestyle recommendations, right? You're doing myopia management already, right? So it depends on what that doc's comfort level is, right? If they say, you know what, Dave, I just want to do lifestyle, I don't want to do anything else. If it gets more complicated, I'm going to refer them out. I mean, I'm happy with that because at least you're taking care of the child. The worst thing to do is you just say, we'll see you next year. We'll see you next year. The myopia gets worse and gets worse and worse and worse, right? So I love to hear a doctor doing something. I don't care what you're doing as long as you're doing something.
Mm-hmm. And Cary, is that, do you agree with that? Should it just be something, or should we be asking for more from?
I think as a profession, we need to, I don't disagree with my colleagues here in getting people started, but I think we need to really raise the question of why we're in this position in the first place. Why we're still chasing this thing, chasing our tail. And what's it been now, 45 years now I've been promoting this. And we're better off, my God, than when we started with, but we're not in a place where I thought we would be at this point, but to be honest about it.
Where did you think that we would be at this point?
Well, I thought this would be something that would be just embraced. I mean, as being like glaucoma therapy and everything else that our profession does, for our patients. This is medical, the same thing. I mean, I thought they would embrace this as a specialty, and of course, all of us. I think if I would raise another point here, I think Dave brought it up about referrals. I think one of the biggest problems we have here with myopia is the fact that ODs don't refer to other ODs. For sure. My God, this is. How big could this be for all of us if they've started doing this? And I think this is one of the problems of why patients stay in the chair and become -8, because they won't refer that patient to their colleagues. It's ridiculous. But we need to address all these things as a profession. Is it happening in the schools? Is it happening postgraduate? Is it a combination of all the above? What are we missing here? Because gentlemen and ladies, gentlemen, we're missing something huge here, because why are we still, what is wrong with us if we don't get this? I mean, this myopia thing is big and it's huge and it's affecting a great percentage of our patients. Why are we, some of our colleagues, dense enough that they're not getting this thing? And they really literally got to push them to get started in it. I mean, that's really the central question: is what are we missing here? Is it education? Is it other things that we're missing with our colleagues that bring us to this point where we're still, battling from behind here, basically still in the same position we were when they created the academy, when we had maybe 1,000 followers, 1,000 people doing this thing, and 35,000 optometrists and 30,000 ophthalmologists. I mean, just a fraction of who should have been involved in this thing. Yeah. And to bring up another point, we have succeeded with ophthalmology. Mm-hmm. All right, they're recognizing this, right? This is huge. I mean, I've traveled around the world. Mostly what we work with is ophthalmology, and they've accepted, see this, and they're doing this thing. What's wrong with us? The vision specialists. Why are we having such a tough time grasping this?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, like one of the most recognized influencers is Dr. Rupa Wong, who is a pediatric ophthalmologist, which is amazing. I love her content. I'm a huge fan of everything that she's doing. But to your point, like, why isn't this optometry's baby to really,
Yeah.
it's a bad analogy. Why isn't this optometry's thing more specifically? I remember times where it was said, this needs to stay in optometry. Ophthalmologists shouldn't get a hold of myopia management. And I disagreed with that back then, and I disagree with it now because I think we need everybody on deck. But so why hasn't this been? There's more than enough education out there. David, there's Vision by Design. There's online courses. Every company that makes a product offers education. There's Treehouse Eyes. There's everything out there. So why hasn't this essentially gotten over that finish line that Cary's describing?
So that's the $1 million question, right? And AAOMC and the board have kind of saying, well, what can we do? What can we do? So we started an initiative now to go into the schools and expose the students, educate the students. And I think as of right now, we have over 600 student members. So that was a big surprise for us. Well, the membership is free, so they just have to go to the QR code and just join up. And you go into the classes, and I do informal survey. I go, how many of you here think myopia management should be the standard of care? And but maybe a third will raise their hand, and then we'll do our talk. And then at the end of the talk, I'll say, well, how many now think it should be the standard of care? And I would say most of the kids would raise their hands. And then we have a Q&A at the end, and I had one student ask me a question saying, Dr. Ng, if it is considered the standard of care, number one, why aren't they telling us this in school? And number two, why isn't every optometrist doing it? Mm-hmm. And that blew me away. Like, this student totally sees it, right? So we're trying to change that. Getting into the schools. We've done that for about a year and a half, and you know what? I think we're getting some traction. It's getting really exciting, and I'm excited to see how many students might come to VBD this year.
Mm-hmm. And Jennifer, you had mentioned that you didn't get any education about myopia in school, if I'm remembering from the beginning of the episode. So, in your opinion, what is the roadblock?
Well, I mean, at the time, we had a concept class about orthokeratology, but yeah, I didn't fit as a person at the clinic at SCO and orthokeratology, right? Like, I also didn't get a chance to fit a scleral when I was at school. So I think it is, with schools, you're looking at your patient base that you're seeing. And a lot of times it is a lot more like people in need of diabetic eye care and glaucoma eye care and a little bit more medically driven with the patients coming to those school clinics. But now that we have approved treatments, I imagine it is a vital part of the curriculum. And from talking to recent grads from my alma mater, it does seem like, yeah, this is something they're exposed to at school, whether they get to fit a patient in it or not.
Mm-hmm. Hi there. I hope you're enjoying part 1 of this episode. Part 2 is going to be available next week. And this is the part of the podcast where I would be taking a quick break to tell you about one of our sponsors. But the simple fact of the matter is, we don't have any sponsors. The Myopia Mindset survives exclusively on the generosity of its audience, listeners and viewers just like you, who either believe in our mission to spread the word about how awesome myopia management is, because we need more ECPs online doing it and doing it confidently and doing it successfully. Or maybe you're one of the audience members who have been learning from our content directly. Or maybe you listen to the podcast as part of that motivation and inspiration aspect to it. You listen to it on the way to the practice. I've heard from some of you that do that, or you're listening to it while you're walking the dog, or you listen to it while you're winding down for the day, or while you're closing down the practice. And if the Myopia Mindset is a benefit to you, if you are interested in becoming a paid subscriber, you can do so on our Substack, myopiamindset.substack.com, the cost of which is just $12 a month, which I said, hey, That's the cost of a cup of coffee each and every week. And if you would buy me a cup of coffee to have on amazing guests to nerd out about myopia management, then please consider becoming a paid subscriber. If any of this is appealing to you, then please consider becoming a paid subscriber of the Myopia Mindset. MyopiaMindset.substack.com is how you do so. Thank you so much. Let's get back to the episode.